Yes, it started.
Okay. Did you say action?
Action.
All right. Basics of Shufflebot. So the course is laid out here uh, in concentric squares. We've tried triangles, but squares, rectangles seem to work better. Around the course, we have starting positions marked out in little pieces of tape for each group. So here we have 8 groups, just depending on how many groups you have. Depends on how many starting positions you have. So round one would start off with just like this, and you know we do 1 point for here, 2 points for here, 3 points for here, and maybe 5 points for here. But scoring is not super important, so you can kind of make it whatever you want. What we like to do is to have one group start, and then they go, and then this group goes, and then this group goes, and that group goes, so that everybody gets a chance. And that's just like the first leg of round one. Because the person that goes last kind of has an advantage. So if this group goes and they get their sphero in the middle of the square here, this group, all these other groups have a chance to go and knock that group out. So what we like to do is after the first leg, we have a second leg where this group goes first. That means that this group gets to go last. We like to go around all the way around and having each group go first at least once to make it fair.
In clarification, do they leave their sphero? One group A will go and they leave their sphero set.
Yes. So they hit start for their code. Sphero goes. Wherever it stops is where the sphero stops and it stays. And then we usually like to have them put a certain color on there so they know which one is theirs. So when the sphero stops, you can either change the color in the Drive app or they can program it to have a color at the end. The other big question is how much time do we give them to practice? So before the first leg, so the very first practice, give them maybe like I don't know 5 minutes or so to have a code that works, and it just depends. I mean, you're watching them work, and you know about the time that everybody gets a code that they're close to being happy with, you can say, okay, time's up, and um, get started on the first leg. So then in between legs, I like to also give them a little bit of time to adjust their code. So they might, their code might have gotten to here, so they might want to adjust it and try to get to here. But that amount of time is shorter. The other thing they can do during that time is change their code if they scored a certain region. So one rule that I like to put in is they can't score with the same code twice in the same region. So if you think about it, this would be 8 legs in round one. If this group gets a code that takes them straight to the middle after the second leg, they don't want to hit. I don't want them just using that same code every single round. So as soon as they score with that code, that program that they wrote, they can't score in that region with that same code again. So they can still score in that region, but they're going to have to change the code to do something like, come here and then go right, something like that. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yes. And so the number of legs will also be determined by how much time is left.
Yeah, the number of legs is determined by the number of groups. So then once you go through those legs for round one, then round two can start.
So number of rounds is determined by how much time the class allows.
Right. So if you have 20 kids, you have 10 groups. Round one's going to last a lot longer than if you have a group of 8.
Okay, another clarification. The opening round, do you give the kids a yardstick to measure?
Yes, so if they want a yardstick, I've had some students ask for one. They can measure distances, and if they have some type of scale that they've created, relating time the sphere is running with a certain speed, and then the distance that it travels, it's pretty effective. So they can have a meter stick if they want.
Aaron, you have any questions?
Um,
The only question I would have had is because Mm, for smaller groups where there's only like maybe two or three or four groups, would you just beef up the time that you would allow them to work on it, or would there just be more rounds in general?
If there are less groups and you have more time, I would focus on adding more rounds.
Okay.
For example, round two, I would start adding obstacles. Um, we have cones and cups and whatever else you want. So I start adding obstacles in for round two, and so you can add, like obstacles here.
Do you add rules about knocking over obstacles or getting around?
That's advanced.
Yep. So you can add whatever rules you want. Usually for the second round, and this just depends on the amount of time you have. So if you have a large group that you're probably only going to get to 2 rounds, if you want to make the second round more interesting, that's fine. But if you have a small group, for the second round, add these obstacles around here so that it's not really a direct shot into the main thing, and then just randomly place them wherever. And so for round two, looks something like this, and then same kind of thing. So you go through all your legs, keep track of total scores so they can add their round two scores or their round one scores. Or if you don't want, you can just do round one and then start over and do round two. It's however you want to do the scoring.
And you can also, for round two, you can also make point totals for different objects.
Yep.
So if they're going from their starting spot, they hit the cone, which is worth 2, and they end up in the square, which is worth 5, they get a total of 7 points.
Yep. So you can make the obstacles worth points.
Or you can make obstacles like if they hit it, they're out, and they get 0. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so it's up to you.
The scoring and the rules they're pretty much unlimited. And then, I make it as interesting as possible for the bigger groups.
Okay.
So just points of clarification, the bigger the group, the bigger the course.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and hopefully,
if you want more room.
yes. And then the winning group, you can make this into a competition if you have a group that's motivated. So maybe we can give away stickers or maybe a shirt or something.
Right. If you have a competitive group, this becomes really fun.
Yeah.
If you have maybe like a couple groups that get really angry, with not doing well, back up on the competition a little bit and maybe focus on beating previous scores. So if you think about round one, right, they had this group of 8 would have 8 times to be able to get a certain score. So, instead of focusing on, this group has 10 total points, but group 2 they had 0. Focus on each iteration, each leg, trying to get a better and better score. That seems to help for the kids that get really mad if they're losing.
So winning group has the most points.
Yep.
If their Sphero goes off of the Shufflebot course, should we put a -1 or do they just get 0?
That's up to the teacher. I usually do negative points off the course because a lot of beginning programmers like to put a lot of seconds on their code. So their first roll command is 60 seconds, and so it'll just roll forever. So that motivates them to be cautious about where their Sphero ends up.
Okay.
And then for future rounds, you can get kind of, creative. So you can turn these upside down and say, it's 10 points if you hit. It's 10 points if you knock over a cup or something like that, but negative points if you bump into it. Or vice versa, right? So maybe it's, you get 10 points if you nudge a cone but not knock it over.
Okay.
So stuff like that, makes it interesting. And also, that first round, can especially for a lot of groups, it can get kind of repetitive, just going straight there. So adding these obstacles in there motivates them to make their code a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
And then you can also, throw in some different programming skills. So have them add colors, have them add sounds when they're done.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
So did you, when you did this with a larger group, did you find that when one group was going, the other groups were patiently waiting, or did you run into problems with discipline with the other groups sitting and waiting?
No, most of them were pretty engaged because once this group went, these groups were all wondering where it was going to go, and then if they were like aiming for the same position, then if this group is inside the square and this group is also going to go inside the square, it gets pretty intense trying to figure out if it's going to push it out or not, or who's going to actually end up in the square. So.
Any other questions for you, Aaron?
How fast does a normal round usually take?
If you have
as far as
right, if you have the kids all paying attention, it could go pretty quick.
Okay.
Right, so it's this group go. Right, so there's ends. All right, this group go. This group go. Right, so the round should take less time than they're actually practicing in between.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make sure, make sure they aim every time. That was always an issue.
That's something we have.
And let's see what else. Make sure they aim every time. And some of the kids, if they are going after their friends, I think a lot of the kids are going to try to play, defense. So make sure they're aware. Like if Aaron, your Sphero goes in the 5-point square, and I hit yours into the 4-point area or 2-point area, that you can do that. It's allowed. Okay.
But we only count the number of points at the end.
Where they're all
after
sitting.
After each leg, you count the number.
Yes.
You get that number of points. So this group goes, right? You complete the leg, and then you tally up the scores.
That's what I mean. After the whatever.
Yeah. A leg is one time.
So once this group goes and say their robot stops right here, right? They have the potential to score however many points you gave this region.
Okay.
But to say if that group goes and goes too far, it knocks them back into this one, right? It's wherever your robot ends.
Okay.
The leg is the points that you gave.
And then depending on if you make rules about if they bump or knock something over, if they roll their ball out into the field and then somebody knocks their ball into a cup and it's their ball that hits it, do they still get points for that?
That's a good question, and that's up to the teacher. It's up to the teacher.
Up to the instructor. And it depends on what kind of kids you have. So it'd be interesting to see a Sphero knock someone else's Sphero into the. I would say, this is just me, but I would say the person who bumped the Sphero into the obstacle would be responsible for whatever point total that is.
And that's up to the instructor.
Well, actually, I guess my first thought was that, but then I thought maybe it's better for the person
who's
that
already in that position
to get the points because that would motivate them to
situation.
try to not.
And let's leave that up to the teacher. The other rule that we forgot to say is at the very beginning, once you do your turn's done, you place your tablet down because you're going to get those kids who try to move their Sphero manually, and you just make the rule
face
that
down, tablet face down.
And if they don't, then they get points off.
And you can have everybody else will be monitoring them to make sure.
Right.
Oh yeah.
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 All right.